Well, here we go again, another week. McCowan, Shannon with you. And of course, we're going to talk football. Because playoffs are getting ready to start.
Yeah.
We have an expanded playoff schedule. We had an expanded regular season. We have a Monday night game in the playoffs. We have all kinds of nonsense going on. So we're going to bring a bunch of football guys in to address the situations and all the games. But before we get to that, Bob Cratchit, a few little things to touch on. Johnny, the Toronto Raptors rattled off yet another victory. Not exactly the most impressive, but only because of the nature of it. You know, they didn't get down by 50 points and give up 90 in the first half. They just kind of played consistently throughout. New Orleans stayed close. Yeah. And the Raptors wind up winning by 4 points, I think.
It speaks to what a few of the guys that have been on the show the last few months have talked about is wait until this team gets healthy. Wait until they get everybody back. Well, and gosh, I mean, they are, there's no reason to think that barring injury or massive COVID outbreak again, that this team isn't on the right track and could be a difference maker in the East. I mean, I must admit, 2 weeks ago, I had doubt whether they would make the playoffs.
Oh, I was going to say the exact same thing. Exact same thing.
And now, I mean, how high can they go?
Well, I think clearly there are limitations unless they are able to consummate some kind of a trade. And yet at the same time, I'm not even sure now what you go for, because the way this team is built right now, and they've had success with it, they are essentially don't worry about center. Give me 4 guys that are 6'9" and can do a bunch of things, and Van Vliet, and we'll take our chances. And generally speaking, that's worked.
Yeah, and if you're Masai or Bobby Webster, I'm not sure, in consultation with Nick Nurse, you want to touch that chemistry.
I'm not sure you do either.
And I actually, I know that it wasn't an artistic matchup yesterday, but I find them fun to watch. I think they're really enjoyable to watch. I think that they can do so many things, so many different ways, and Van Vliet, to me, is we ended up talking about him a lot last week, but Fred Van Vliet, to me, he hasn't come on the scene because people who are closer to the team than you or I have talked that he's a catalyst. But man, oh man, he seems to have elevated. He seems to have gone to another level.
No, he doesn't seem to have, John. He has.
Okay.
He has. He's playing like the best point guard in the NBA right now.
Yeah. He's better than Kyle Lowry right now.
Well, I'm sure Kyle Lowry, I don't recall specifically, but I'm sure Kyle Lowry had stretches where of greatness, maybe as good as Van Vliet's. I don't think any better than Van Vliet's stretch. Van Vliet still does some things I hate.
Like?
Takes the ball into the key and has nowhere to go with it because he's 4'0". I don't think that's effective.
Yeah.
Unless
you can push it out quickly. If you can get it out to the 3-point line quickly.
He has great skills on defense, and our basketball friends tell us that all the time, but he gets beat consistently off the dribble.
Yeah.
All the time. First 2 steps, and almost invariably he's behind the guy he's guarding.
Yeah.
He has such quick hands, and he works hard and he recovers. I forgive him for all that stuff. He is a terrific, terrific player and the centerpiece of this franchise. We will see how far it can take him.
And let's face it, Pascal Siakam is now the Pascal Siakam that we thought was supposed to be here all season after shoulder surgery, right? Yeah. And you have to wonder how long it took him to get back to 100% after the surgery.
Well, and then you wait for one of the other guys to have a big night.
Yeah.
And it's a different guy every night.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty good combination. I think they scored 61 last night between the two of them. If they get 61 points out of those 2 guys every night, they'll win a whole lot of basketball games.
Yep.
We want to move through a few things quickly here. Toronto Maple Leafs played the Avalanche in Colorado on Saturday night, up 4-1, looked to be in cruise control. Avalanche put 3 in, then win in overtime, but it's Colorado Avalanche. They're supposed to be good, right?
Yeah, and I think that Colorado right now is playing its best hockey of the season. Cale Makar and Byron on the blue line are great young players. Their big line of McKinnon, Landeskog, and Ratinen are playing their best hockey of the season. They're back healthy. And, what's the key to the success of the Maple Leafs this year? And that's been Jack Campbell in goal. Darcy Kemper is playing really good goal right now for the Avalanche. And so they seem to have everything going in the right direction. And not to derail the conversation, but did you see Marc-Andre Fleury in Vegas on Saturday night, Bob?
I did not.
Took his Chicago Blackhawks into the Fortress and beat the Golden Knights 2-1. So kind of a really, really emotional night for Fleury before the game, a big ceremony for him. And the crowd there has never forgotten what Fleury did for that franchise. And for the Blackhawks to win 2-1 would have been a really feel-good story for him.
Well, you know how I feel about Fleury and about Vegas deciding to cut him loose. I think it was a terrible decision. And I'm glad he showed them up.
And by the way, our his agent and our buddy Alan Walsh didn't waste any time Saturday night to tweet out that he's the first goaltender in NHL history to have victories against 32 hockey teams, 32 NHL teams.
Well, yeah, he had to beat the team he played for all those years.
That's right.
The Djokovic story is one that I don't know if I don't think it's over. I think there's still potentially more to come, but the latest is they're going to let him play.
He's practicing at Rod Laver today.
I don't get it.
Neither do I.
Either you got a law, either you got a rule, or you don't.
Yeah.
And I've never liked Djokovic. I'll be honest with you. I think he's made an ass of himself on numerous occasions. I think he's a phony baloney, but he's a great tennis player.
Sure he is.
And there comes a point where you wonder whether, from a marquee value, that played a role in the decision to allow him to play at this moment.
Well, let's remember
if he was Claude Themalfachuk, the 64th seed,
he doesn't get the visa. He doesn't get the visa, Bob.
And that's my point.
I mean, he doesn't get the visa there. And I think that's what the Australian public is not very happy about, that they're giving special treatment to special people. And that's an issue. I don't think we have seen the end of it. And it still would not surprise me that Djokovic is not allowed to play at the Australian Open.
Well, I don't have any prediction as to what's going to happen, but I'm not happy with what has happened. I thought they basically kicked him out, but he hung around. Like, he sat in a hotel room for 3 or 4 days.
Well, and launched a court case. Yeah. I mean, and for the judge to support him based on the evidence was
based on what?
Is
it because apparently he had COVID a month ago?
Well, and he's non-vaccinated, Bob.
Well, John, I think everybody knows that.
No, well,
but he had COVID like a month ago. The chances of, his immune system has built up. The chances of him getting COVID or spreading COVID.
No, but the Australian government's rule.
Slim. Well, great. There's laws and there's rules, and the public has to follow those rules. And prima donnas like Djokovic get exemptions, and it happens in Canada just as much as in Australia and everywhere else in the world. So we shouldn't be surprised by it, but here we go. I wonder if he'll be cheered or booed when he takes it.
Do you think there's any doubt about that?
Not much.
No.
Real quickly before we go, we're going to talk football, but I got to get my 2 cents in on the Browns. Baker Mayfield did not play.
No.
Case Keenum did.
Yeah.
He led him to a win. Wasn't particularly exciting. I don't think Keenum's the quarterback for the Cleveland Browns under any circumstance. But do you think, was there anything more than it's the last game and it doesn't mean anything? Is that or is there more to why Mayfield didn't play?
Well, Mayfield requires shoulder surgery.
Yeah, he required it all year. Maybe he should have got it.
Well, and now that you're out, what's the point? And I think his surgery is coming up this week. The team's already announced that they're going to honor his contract for next year, and they're going to have him back. So I think the long-term prognosis for the Cleveland Browns is Baker Mayfield will be the starting quarterback long before you maintain your abject protest to that.
Well, I just don't think I think the statistics, if you look at the stats from this year, look at the passing stats from this year. His wide receiver group isn't all that bad. In fact, I think they're decent and maybe even pretty good. And he hasn't performed. Now, is it entirely injury related? I don't know. You asked me at the beginning of the season.
Oh, I know I did. I did. Yeah.
And what did I tell you?
You didn't like him. You didn't like him. You don't think he's a winner. And you had to choose between Mayfield and Burrow, and you chose Burrow.
I chose Burrow.
Yeah.
And then kind of hedged because Mayfield had a great game against Burrow.
Yeah.
But it ain't Keenum. But I'm still pretty convinced it ain't Mayfield either. We'll move on. But speaking of football, Howard Simon of WGR in Buffalo, Zig Fracassi of Sirius XM will join us. We'll go through all the games, let you know what the guys think.
Oh, we got to talk about the games last night first, though. Come on.
We'll do that too.
Okay.
That's ahead after these messages. McCown and Shannon back with you, joined by a couple of football nerds as we get set for the beginning of the playoff run, the expanded playoff run. Howard Simon of WGR in Buffalo, Zig Fracassi of Sirius XM with us. Well, let's start with this. I know we're going to go through all the games and try and analyze the crap out of this thing, but
hold on. Oh, you got to talk about last night, right? Is that what you're going to do?
We're going to get to that. The playoffs are going to start with a Monday night football game, and I didn't realize they decided to do this. Not start with a Monday night game, but they're going to have a Monday night game in the playoffs. I think this is one of the worst ideas ever. Howard?
If the Bills were in the Monday night game, I would have agreed with you that it's one of the worst ideas ever.
Zig?
Well, as well as I do, Bob, it's one of those things where, quite honestly, the NFL looking for ways to extend the brand. Why not create another spot, have 3 wild card games, give the top teams a bye? That's the way they operate. So it is what it is.
Follow the money.
That's right.
Yep. Follow the money.
That's right. We get why. I'm just not 100% sure it's fair, but and you'd think which is why they haven't done it in the past, because you could have put a Monday night football game on for the last 50 years, for goodness sakes, in the playoffs, and they haven't. Nonetheless, John wanted to start with the Chargers Raiders last night.
How can you not?
Well, it's certainly worth discussing. Let's fast forward to overtime and 2 minutes left, and the score is tied, and the Raiders are moving the ball down the field. Did we all get the sense that the Raiders were essentially saying, okay, we'll take the tie? Or did they want to kick the field goal at the end and win the game, which they were forced essentially to do by the Chargers calling timeouts? Howard, to you first.
Okay, full disclosure. One of us in this conversation did not stay up after halftime for that game because somebody gets up. I get up at 4:00 in the morning. So
too bad.
I went to bed thinking, whatever, I'll wake up and I'll find out. However, I've seen the clips. I'm up on the discussion. I would have guessed, if I were on the Chargers sideline, my guess is Rich Bisaccia would have done what most coaches do, typically speaking, in the NFL: play it safe. He didn't need to win. He just didn't want to lose. So if I had to guess, rather than call timeout, I would have thought they would have just run a safe play, not fumbled, and done everything they could to run the clock out. As long as they tie, they're in. They just didn't want to lose the football game.
Yeah, I actually was up because I do the post-game show on Sunday nights with Ryan Leaf on Channel 88, and the logic was that they took the timeout because Staley wanted to have, fresher people in there for the specific run defense, and everybody was ablaze on Twitter that timeout basically cost the Chargers a playoff spot, because Carr even admitted it in his interview with Michelle Tafoya that it did change what they wanted to do. And then Jacobs breaks the 10-yard run to make it a closer field goal for Carlson, who's automatic anyway. So Brandon Staley, who, by the way, messed up earlier, if you remember, third quarter, he goes for it 4th and 1 on his own 18. This guy's a little too trigger happy for my taste. So instead of the Raiders and Chargers both getting it in and telling Pittsburgh to screw off, Raiders kick the field goal, Steelers get into the postseason.
At least Staley's consistent, Zig. I mean, this is the way he has been all season long. If you watch Charger games, this guy, he is a gunslinger. He any conventional thought process of an NFL coach, he does not believe in. And I think a lot of people like it. I think a lot of people enjoy the way they play football, and they're certainly entertaining.
Yeah, they are, John. And it's the product of the new so-called analytics. That's, the stat nerds and everybody loves that. But there comes a time and place where you just got to use common sense. And I thought that reeked of arrogance when they went for it on 4th and 1 from their own 18. So I can understand aggression, but I can also understand being smart about things. That particular instance, he wasn't. And I am convinced that timeout cost them a playoff spot.
Well, the timeout cost them a playoff spot, and then the Raiders deciding to kick the field goal when they didn't really need to. They were in the playoffs at that point. They call timeout with 3 seconds left,
Right.
and then try and kick a 46-yard field goal. Okay, their kicker has never missed a kick in that stadium ever.
Right.
It's a field goal. You make it, you miss it. I guess it doesn't make any difference. But what if it's blocked? What if? You're in at that point if you run the clock out.
That's right.
Should we do that? Should you do that, or do you not do that? Or is there this aura of you got to play to win?
No, you play to get yourself in the playoffs. There's no need. That's why I don't think they would have tried the field goal. You don't run the risk. I know Carlson's automatic. You're right. He's been hitting clutch kicks all season for them. You don't even run the risk of putting the field goal team out, which is why if they don't call timeout, maybe the Raiders just run a safe play. They're content. They're in. Chargers get in too. Why even put the field goal team on the field and try it? There's no need to.
But the other thing is that, and maybe I'm reading too much into this. These two teams hate each other, have hated each other for years. Chargers, Raiders. I mean, this is an old AFL matchup. This is an old AFC matchup. This was Al Davis's first team against Al Davis's second team. This was the Spanos family against the Davis family. This was everything that a rivalry was all about. And if the Raiders could knock the Chargers out of the playoffs, can't you see Mark Davis in his box? And we didn't see him last night in his box. Couldn't you see Mark Davis in his box going, there's one for Dad? I think that I mean, both teams said they were going to play for the win. God bless the Raiders for trying to play for the win. I think it was great.
Although, John, you could think about it from this standpoint, too, since we're on a little bit of a historical, nostalgia. If the Raiders play for the tie, that eliminates the Steelers and then gets them even for the Immaculate Reception. Right?
Wow.
Well, now come on, Zig.
I know. I'm just having a little fun with that one, but still.
He plays for the win. They're playing for win, right? They're trying to win the game with that much. I mean, he plays for the win for 69 minutes and 56 seconds or whatever the math is. Yeah. And then again, it probably wasn't going to happen. But all right, let's say they put the field goal team out there. It gets blocked and the Chargers return it.
Exactly.
First off, Rich Bisaccia gets fired. He doesn't get the job on a regular basis, which he might get now. Who knows? But he'll go down in history for one of the all-time boneheaded decisions in NFL history. If he decided to do a field goal, which meant absolutely nothing.
That's right.
Well, it mattered. The only thing it would have made a difference in is the matchups in the playoffs.
Right.
But so what? I mean,
right.
At the end of the day, you got to go through a bunch of teams to win a Super Bowl, which is your objective. Who they are doesn't necessarily make that much difference. I think it was the stupidest play I've ever seen. I thought both teams were stupid. I think calling the timeouts with 38 seconds left when the Chargers calling timeouts was stupid because it looked like the Raiders were perfectly prepared to run out the clock. They weren't in field goal position at that point. And then calling the Raiders calling a timeout with 3 seconds left to bring the field goal team on when the game is, all they got to do is let the clock run. The game is over. They go to the playoffs. So the Chargers go to the playoffs too. Big whoop. And you took a colossal risk. Now, maybe it's a teeny tiny risk. How many blocked field goals have we seen over the course of our lifetime? Probably count them on one hand, but nonetheless.
Check me on the math. Let me ask you guys this, because I didn't check the math on this at all, quite honestly. If it's a tie, so the Raiders end up 9-7-1, right? So they'd be tied with the Steelers. I don't know who would have owned the tiebreaker there. Is it possible the Raiders didn't want to be the 7 seed? They would have to play Kansas City.
Well, I think that's true.
That's a fair point. Yeah.
I think that's true. I said it does alter the matchups in the playoffs.
Sure it does.
Right.
But is it reason enough to risk not making the playoffs? I wouldn't have done it.
But I think I wouldn't have done it either. But I'm going to guess at that point, and I don't know the tiebreaker, so I might be wrong. But let's say it comes down to, do I want to go to Cincinnati or do I want to go to Kansas City? Maybe Bisaccia feels, hey, they called timeout. You know what? Let me try and get closer. I get a field goal. I don't have to worry about going to Kansas City.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and you to Zig's point, you do wonder if they don't have that 12-yard run after the timeout, does that change the whole perspective?
Well, of course it does, because they're not in field goal range, John.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
Now you're talking a 58-yard field goal. Well, and you know, I mean, he's good, but you know, that's another kettle of fish.
Exactly.
Anyway.
Yep.
We have dissected that.
It was a great way to, I tell you what, it was a great way to end the NFL regular season, though. I mean, and do these guys, does the National Football League, they, you know, every time you wonder if something's going wrong, they end up with a pot of gold. They are so far ahead of every other professional sport right now in North America. I mean, there was a story this week that came out that of the top 100 television viewed events in sports in North America, 75 were NFL games. 75 were NFL games. And it just tells you the control they have. And then a game like last night will just emphasize that.
All right. What we got to do here is, because we got to get going, because this may take a long time depending on how verbose our guests are. But we're going to go through the list of playoff games, and there's more of them now. So let's go in chronological order as they will be contested. So we start on Saturday, and it's the Raiders at the Bengals. We're all pretty familiar with the Raiders after watching last night, although Howard only watched half of the game. The Bengals, on the other hand, made a push, won the division, but then lost to the Browns.
Yeah, but Burrow didn't play. Burrow didn't play yesterday, though.
Okay, game didn't mean anything to them. But again, it's another one of those big rivalry games. The Browns didn't play their number one quarterback either, although I'm not sure who their number
maybe
one quarterback is or should be.
Maybe they did.
All right, who do we like in this, Bengals or the Raiders? Zig, to you first.
I'm going to go with the Bengals here. I know it's a big ask for Burrow this early in his career, but they have the home field. I like their offensive composition. I don't know if the Raiders can cover all three of the Bengals receivers, and it's also too a short week for the Raiders. Early game, East Coast travel. I'll lean towards the Bengals on that one.
Howard?
Two things. One, I look forward to the segment about talk show hosts who aren't verbose. It'll be a very short segment. And two, I will take the Bengals. I'm not sold on the Raiders. When we were talking about ideal opponents for the Bills, I was all in for Las Vegas. These guys have played with fire all season. They've got 6 walk-off wins. Down the stretch, they get a big win over the Colts when Wentz doesn't practice all week because he's on COVID list. They barely beat a Browns team that was ravaged by COVID on their roster. I'm not sold on Vegas, guys. I think Joe Burrow is a star, and I think the Bengals defense is improved, and I love the weapons. I don't see how they stop Jamar Chase. I think Cincinnati wins.
I mean, the key thing there is that it's those 2 young receivers that make such a difference for the Bengals. They are so good. And I mean, I never thought I mean, the NFL draft always proves me wrong, but to have a young quarterback come in and make such a difference in such a quick period of time, when you think 2 or 3 years, the Bengals they're on the rise. They're a better team. Burrow makes them a better team. And I think right now, I think they're better coached too. And I think that's a big part of this.
Well, for a variety of reasons, I'm going to go with the Raiders here. And let's start with the stupid reasons. Number one, I'm a Browns fan, so anything the Bengals do positive, I would hate. Number two, I used to live in Vegas, so I become kind of a fan of anything in sports in Vegas. And number three, I think you got to respect what the Raiders did this year after their coach getting booted out, after losing a whole bunch of games. And I like a team that fights to the bitter end, that pulls out games. You know, you can win 32-10 every once in a while, but it's going to be because the other team played like crap. The close ones show some character. I don't know how much talent this team has, the Raiders, but I think they have character, and maybe that can win out over a young quarterback.
Might come to whether that defensive lineman Pylon that had such a good game last night, whether he's healthy enough to play. They carted him off late in the game.
Didn't look like it when he left.
No, I know. And Crosby's so good on the defensive line that we know he's gonna put pressure on Burrows, but it'll be fun to watch.
I'm sure we should leave this one till the end, especially for Howard. But chronologically, the next game up is Patriots at the Bills. That quarterback is not going to play for the Patriots. We all know that. But are the Bills capable of winning this game against their arch rival, Howard?
Yes, absolutely. More than capable. And I think that we had a really great discussion here about, did you want the Patriots? Did you want the Chargers? And I think if people are concerned about the Patriots, I'm going to guess it's one of two things, fellas. One, it's still the Belichick mystique, and it's New England. And we've been scarred for life because of 20 years of Brady and Belichick. And as long as you keep breathing on this earth, you'll always be worried about playing a Belichick team. Or two, their running game. The Bills had a good run defense. They had some tough moments in some of their games. One of them, the New England game here, because they ran all over them on that really windy night. I'm not concerned about this matchup, Bob. The Bills have by far the better quarterback. The Bills have a better roster. The Bills have a good enough defense to not let Stevenson and Harris go crazy in this game. And Mac Jones, I like stuff from him, right, that I've seen. This kid is not going to elevate that team and make plays in the passing game if they need him to make them in a playoff game. He struggled down the stretch as they played bigger games. His game got worse. So I think they're fully capable of winning this game.
Zig.
Yeah, and I agree with Howard, too. There's always that Belichickian aura, and I can understand, the trepidation in terms of Bills fans going against the Patriots. But I also agree the fact that they have a better overall roster. The Bills did play better as the season wore on. I think they are getting healthier down the stretch. And watching the game yesterday with New England and Miami, Brian Flores is now the ex-coach, and that's another topic. But still, he had a great game plan, and it was obvious when there was the pick six early for the Miami Dolphins that the Patriots are a not come from behind team. They have to get ahead to win games. I think if the Bills strike the early blow, New England's not good at chasing the game, so I would shade towards the Bills in this one.
Hey, Howard, I got to ask you a question. The mid-season swoon, everybody started to worry about the swoon. Did the team learn anything from that?
Well, it wasn't as much a swoon as it was a roller coaster ride. They were just up and down. I mean, they literally couldn't string together back-to-back wins until this 4-game winning streak. So I think if there is depending on how the season plays out, fellas, if they make a run, Lord willing, and win a Super Bowl or get to the Super Bowl, we're going to point to the Tampa Bay game. Something changed in that game at halftime. The Bills were getting blown out in that game. They were not playing particularly well. New England was coming up on the horizon, and they came out and they played really well in that half. They let Josh throw the ball. They got a little bit more aggressive. They lose the game, but it kind of started them on what turns out to be this 4-game winning streak. I think they had kind of struggled with the identity of their offense a little bit. And I think there was maybe some internal debate going on, personnel usage. Maybe they were sticking with some veteran guys a little too much when they should be going with some of the younger guys on offense. And I think those are some of the things that came together in that Tampa game, and I think are part of why they went on this 4-game win streak.
Bob, I think the only way that New England can win this game is the same way they won in Orchard Park early in the season, and that if weather's a factor. You watch the game in New England in Foxborough. They were by far the better team. They were a much more improved team than the Patriots, and so it's the extra elements. If it's in a snowstorm, I haven't checked the weather for Saturday yet. If it's in a snowstorm, if there's rain, if there's wind, then I might give my nod to the Patriots. But anything other than that, I would think this is Bills all the way.
Well, let me say this. I mean, I've never played professional football, but I played enough sports to understand that there is a reality in the notion of an aura, a curse, something. History, for whatever reason, does matter when two individuals are contesting something or whether two teams are contesting something. And New England has that thing over the Buffalo Bills. And I respect Howard's optimism and the reality that the Bills are the better football team. I wouldn't argue that for a second. But will they beat the Patriots? I think this Bills team would rather play anybody but the Patriots just because of that. If that's real, if that mystique is real, then this is going to be a football game that the Patriots can win. If these Bills don't care about that, if they have eliminated it from their minds, they're better. They win and probably win comfortably. We got 4 more to go, but we got to take a quick break. We'll do that. Come back after these messages. Bob McCown, John Shannon on the program today, Howard Simon of WGR in Buffalo, Zig Fracassi of Sirius XM with us. We move to Sunday's games. Eagles and the Bucks. Should be one-sided, Zig, shouldn't it?
It should be, Bob. And, obviously Tampa winning their division once again, and with the backdrop, obviously, of the Antonio Brown drama. But yet, when you've got Tom Brady, there's always something that seems to drive him. And now you got to wonder, well, they're without Brown. They're without Godwin. So Tom's probably thinking to himself, all right, well, how do we, get motivated and stay hungry again? Well, you still have Brait. You still have Gronk. You still have Mike Evans. So the motivation's always going to be there. Plus, they've got the home field advantage. And Philadelphia had a nice run in the second half of the season under first-year head coach Nick Sirianni as they were able to establish the run. But Sanders being out, I think that's going to be a big problem if he doesn't come back for this game. Plus, Jalen Hurts has had, some progression in his second year in the league, but going against a good Tampa Bay defense, I think the Bucs are too much at home. I'd shade towards the Buccaneers.
Howard?
Yeah, I think Zig hit on one of the key points. If Philadelphia is going to win this game, they turn their season around, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, they hit a soft spot in the schedule. They certainly took advantage of it, but running the ball, their quarterback, their running game was their strength down the stretch. I didn't check the updated standings through week 18, but I think going into the games, Tampa was number 1 run defense. If not, they're right at the top. It's really hard to run against that front seven. They're extremely physical. They're very athletic. I just don't see how the Eagles get enough of a running game going. And if they are forced to throw the ball a little bit, I don't think that would bode well for Jalen Hurts.
Well, and I don't think Hurts is 100% either. That's one of the reasons he didn't play yesterday. Right. And I think that's one that if your quarterback, who has had a pretty good second half of the season, isn't at 100% to play against the Bucs, you have little or no chance.
49ers at the Cow. Oh, I'm taking the Bucs, by the way, and I'm not even going to think twice about it.
Why, did you live in Tampa too? Or
no, I didn't.
Okay,
I have no relationship to the Bucs.
Just checking.
Well, I've seen enough of Brady to know he's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, hey, he's a good player.
49ers against the Cowboys. Now there's a constituency out there that says Cowboys will win easily. This is the same constituency that, of course, has thought the Cowboys have been the best team in football for the last 50 years, and they rarely have been. How good is this Cowboys team? Because I really don't think this is about what the 49ers do. I think this is entirely about, is this Cowboys team actually for real? Howard?
Yes, I think they are. I've been to Dallas, so but anyway, I think they are for real. I honestly, guys, if the Dallas Cowboys lose this game, I would change head coaches. I think the only thing holding this franchise, I'm not a believer in Mike McCarthy. I didn't think he was a good head coach in Green Bay.
Me neither.
I think he's terrible in in-game management. I think he's conservative by nature. I think he holds his teams back. I think Dak Prescott is extremely talented. It's a really good offense, tremendous skill position players. Dan Quinn did a really great job turning around what was a horrendous defense last season. Dallas should win this game. If they lose, and I'm Jerry Jones, I go shopping for another coach.
Sick.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, and McCarthy, I'm with Howard there. I thought they won in Green Bay in spite of him, to be honest with you. Well, plus you have Aaron Rodgers to help bail you out. And I'm also with Howard, too, on Dan Quinn. I think he's done a phenomenal job bringing in, an aggressive defensive concept. Plus, of course, I think you've got a guy like Micah Parsons, who some would talk up as being the defensive player of the year. He's had that much impact, not only rushing the passer, but he can cover receivers out of the backfield. But will he come off COVID in time remains to be seen. I was just going to say, against, above 500 teams, the Cowboys have not fared well this year. But I would say the Cowboys at home, after last year's debacle of not making the playoffs, I think they'll win probably by about a touchdown.
I tell you what, Bob, I think the 49ers are good enough. I really do. And I think we saw that yesterday. I think the second half against their arch rival, the Rams, and the Rams looked like world beaters yesterday for a lot of the game. But I thought what Garofalo did, and I have a soft spot for Kyle Shanahan. I just think that they're a team on the rise, and I do think that this might be the best game of the weekend, in my opinion.
Wow, really?
Might be the closest game of the weekend, and it would not surprise me that the 49ers win. It would not surprise me that the 49ers win.
You said that twice as if we didn't hear you the first time.
No, well, I'm trying to emphasize that I don't live in the Bay Area, but it would not surprise me that the 49ers win.
Seems to be a theme on this show. I can't say I can't believe I'm going to say this, but I think the Cowboys are going to win this football game. But I've yet to be convinced that they're the real deal. We'll come back to that in the days and weeks to come. Steelers at the Chiefs. Well, if there's a one-sided game, I guess this is it. And if you love Roethlisberger, you're going to feel badly for him that his last game at home wasn't his last game overall, because the Chiefs could just crush this Steelers team. Howard, where are you at on this one?
Exactly where you are. If the Steelers win this game, it's going to be one of the more stunning upsets in playoff history. It's a bad team. Steelers are a bad offensive team. And they were lucky they were playing a team worse than they are, Baltimore, to get into the playoffs and the wacky scenarios that played out. I think they're going to struggle. Look, they played Kansas City a few weeks ago. They went into Arrowhead, and they got their doors blown off before halftime. Yeah. It's 14-0 after one, 23-0 at the half. Halfway through the third quarter, it's 30-0. The Steelers are doing literally nothing on offense. I don't think they're going to have any success. I'm with you, Bob. I think, what is it, a 13.5-point spread? It's the largest spreads of any of these games because the bettors do not believe in Pittsburgh. I think they're right. It should be a blowout.
Zig?
And if memory serves me correct, I think both Kelsey and Hill were out in that game too, and they still blow their doors off. One thing though that has concerned me about actually two things. They had that offensive explosion against Pittsburgh, but it's been more inconsistent for them on that side of the ball. Plus, I did see sort of the leaky defensive prowess of the Chiefs the last couple of games too, because they had really tightened things up. That's the way they were winning a lot of the games over that 8-game winning streak, was more on the defense. But the last couple of games haven't been that impressive. But in this case, 4 new starters on that Steelers offensive line. Ben's been taking a lot of beatings. I think if they muscle up on Claypool, he's the one deep threat, and they can keep Freiermuth in check, I think Kansas City should win this one comfortably.
This is reminiscent of the famous Harry Neal line where he's standing there behind the Vancouver Canuck bench, and he says to his assistant coach after Canada finished, he says, every time we play that song, we don't play very well. And so I suspect that after the opening kickoff, that this will not be very much of a contest. I mean, Patrick Mahomes appears to have his mojo back. He still makes lots of mistakes, a lot more mistakes than he's made in his Super Bowl year or even last year. But I'll tell you what, Kansas City's so much better than Pittsburgh. It's silly.
Well, I'm not denying any of this, but I know this is a topic for down the road, assuming the Chiefs go down the road, but which they should. They should win this game by 100. Having said that, this is a curious Chiefs team, a team that I don't know about you guys, but I thought would be better. Maybe it's watching Mahomes 2 years ago and thinking, well, the Chiefs will be a Super Bowl contender for the next 10, 15 years with this kid at quarterback. And they got off to a terrible start. Mm-hmm. There were moments during the year where you didn't know what they were. And I guess I'm not 100% sure I know what the Chiefs are now. Are they actually still one of the truly elite teams in the National Football League? Or are they just a good team trying to figure out how to get to that elite level?
Well, you know what? Go ahead, Howard.
I think, Bob, I actually will agree with you on this one. I don't think they're not the gold standard. You used aura a little earlier with Belichick. Well, after the last couple of years with Mahomes, Kansas City, I think there was an aura around them, even though they lost the Super Bowl to Tampa. I don't think they are that elite level right now. I think Zig is right. If you look at, we know their defense turned around, right? But their offense still didn't they had a really good game in Cincinnati where they ended up losing the shootout, right? They blew out the Raiders, but they didn't look good against Denver. You know, the second half of the season, as they were playing a little bit better, I don't think the offense was functioning at a level where we saw it the last 2 years from Mahomes in Kansas City. So I agree with your point. I don't look at Kansas City as that gold standard team. They got their game together, but they are not playing at an elite level. I just think this is a particularly great matchup for them, but I just don't see them losing this game. But they are not at that top level, Bob. You're right.
Zig, you want to throw your 2 cents in on that?
Yeah, I'm with Howard on that. I mean, throughout the season, I mean, he mentioned about the Raiders. I mean, they blew them out 2 times. It was 41-14 and 48-9. But other than that, I mean, they only had 13 against Green Bay. They had 19 against Dallas. I mean, there were games that they looked awfully inconsistent, and I think part of that was because defenses have learned to take away the deep ball on Mahomes, so they're trying to make him scramble around more, and he's forced more balls into coverage than I think than he ever did before. Kelsey and Hill still get open, you know, a fair amount, but I think it's more of defensive adjustments. And this is where Andy Reid, who I think is still one of the best coaches in the game, maybe has to harness Mahomes a little bit, maybe telling him not be such the daredevil and start using other guys like Hardman, like Pringle and some of these other guys, get them involved, loosen up the defense a little bit, and maybe take more of these so-called sure passes as opposed to behind the back and underhand and all the other stuff that we've seen Mahomes do through the years.
Yeah. The last one. And again, I'm not a fan of this putting a Monday Night Football game on in the playoffs. I think it's unfair to the teams involved because it gives them one less day to prepare for the following week. I assume they're not going to give them a bye week during the playoffs. So Cards at the Rams. So the Rams are a very good team with flaws. The Cards were a great team who succumbed to flaws and COVID and injuries and have looked really ordinary in the last, 9-10 games that they've played. Can the Cards actually win this game? Yeah, I think they can, but will they? Howard?
No, this is a really weird game because quite honestly, you shouldn't have faith in either of these teams right now.
Exactly.
You documented the case Arizona with, I mean, just from 7-0 to an implosion. Can't even, beat Seattle the other day with a chance to win the division. And so on paper, you would take the Rams, but right now, Matthew Stafford has been kind of inconsistent, and so I think I think the Rams will win the game. It is much less about my faith of the Rams winning the game than it is about my faith in the Cardinals not being good enough to beat Los Angeles on Monday night. Sorry. So I would take the Rams, but no big vote of confidence for either team the way they're playing.
Yeah, I would agree with Howard because I've seen more of the Detroit Matthew Stafford than I have the polished up version of the Matthew Stafford, who actually performed quite well through most of the season, but then he started getting into some of those bad habits. Now he has a really great, safety valve there with Cooper Kupp. I mean, that combination has been absolutely tremendous. And then, defensively, Von Miller has made a minimal impact. I would have expected to see a little bit more out of him on that side of the ball. So it's going to be interesting because Arizona had actually dominated. I think they had won like 5 or 6 in the series before the Rams beat them on Monday night. And as far as Arizona's concerned, I'm definitely concerned about that defense. I mean, Seattle gashed them for 38 on Sunday, and they had nothing to play for. Now, does J.J. Watt come back? Is he going to be activated to play in this game on Monday night? Maybe give them a shot in the arm? That remains to be seen. I think the DeAndre Hopkins absence definitely hurts Kyler and what he likes to do because other teams can focus in on A.J. Green. Is Connor healthy enough out of the backfield, too? Not a great fan of either team, but I'd probably shade towards the Rams at home to get the job done.
I just think that the wild card in all this is, and we touched on Patrick Mahomes being able to freelance and what he does. The question is can Kyler Murray freelance well enough? If they win the Cards, this is all on Murray.
Yep.
Murray's ability to freelance, Murray's ability to move the ball, to run to throw the ball ad nauseum. Can Zach Ertz be really made part of this offense better than he has been so far? I actually think Arizona can win this game. And to me, a lot of it was an indication yesterday because how the Rams couldn't beat the 49ers, because the Rams had something to play for yesterday and they couldn't make it work. I think that Arizona goes in there and win, Bob.
Well, final point before we let you guys go. Obviously, we have predominantly taken teams that are at home. Is home field advantage a bigger asset in the playoffs than it is in the regular season? But understanding that in this case, the team with the better record has the home field advantage here. And that does not necessarily, obviously, that doesn't take place in the National Football League. It's generally half and half. But would you rather have home field advantage in the playoffs than in the regular season? Howard, to you first.
Well, the Bills have yet to win a road playoff game since Sean McDermott took over. So I'm going to go yes, home field advantage. I do think it matters for most teams. I know home versus road in the regular season, the numbers have shifted to maybe even almost a 50-50 split the last few years. But I think you get to the postseason, and I think you get, the crazy crowds and all the intensity and all the energy in the building. And I do think it does matter to be at home. I think it is important for a few teams, including the Bills. I think there could be exceptions to the rule. I don't think anybody would be intimidated at the prospect of going into Nashville, having to play Tennessee, but I do think it matters to many teams.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that, like going to Arrowhead is going to be next to impossible for the Pittsburgh Steelers, because that's really one of the defined home fields in the National Football League. But the other ones, again, Cincinnati, it's been a while since they've hosted a playoff game. Of course, you're thinking, Highmark Stadium ought to be fire and brimstone for the Bills. And then, Jerry World, for goodness sakes, you may have about 25,000 49ers fans showing up for that great rivalry. Tampa will have a decided home field, and the Rams, geez, I'm not so sure. So in this particular case, Bob, to be honest with you, I'm not sure it is that big a deal, except for in the Arrowhead instance with the Chiefs.
Well, let me just be, I know we got to go, but isn't there a huge difference between indoors and outdoors, really, for home field? Don't you think, Howard?
Well, only if the weather's bad.
Yeah, and the noise factor. Sure. I mean, it depends. I mean, obviously, noise factor can be disconcerting for some offensive teams when you're playing on the road in the dome. But, again, like you said, Bob, I mean, the Bills have had some crappy home weather this season. If they had to go on the road, but it was in a dome, I don't think Bills fans would be worried. They'd be pretty happy that their offense plays in pristine conditions.
Right.
Although it was interesting. I'm sorry, Bob. No, I was just going to say something that was interesting yesterday, reading, some of the 49ers reporters during the game. The Rams actually had to go silent count at their own stadium yesterday. How bizarre is that?
Well,
yeah,
it's LA after all.
Yeah, that's true.
A lot of weird things happen there that you would not expect. Well, there you go, folks. There's our expert's opinion. I was going to say expert opinion, but that would include John and I. Which
right. Hey, one more quick question, and this is a yes or no. Are we going to see Jim Harbaugh back in the NFL, Zig?
Yes.
Howard, what do you think?
Yes.
There you go. Guess that Michigan thing didn't really work after all.
Well, I pray he stays at Michigan because, of course, I'm an Ohio State Buckeye fan. And so, I mean,
they got him this year, Bob.
They did get him this year. I'll give him that. That's what, 1 out of 8 or something, 1 out of 9. I don't know how many years he's been there, something like that. Guys, enjoy the opening round of the playoffs. It'll take you 3 days to get through it. Howard will probably sleep through half of it.
Sorry.
And we'll get you on again.
Thank God the Bills play Saturday. That's it. Thank God.
Amen. I can stay up late.
You don't have a show Sunday morning, thank God.
No.
Boys, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it. Good to see you, and we'll talk again soon, I hope.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Fellas.
Thanks for having me on.
Howard Simon, Zig Fracassi. We'll come back with more after these messages. And we have returned. It's McCowan and Shannon. Well, half of the 4 of us have returned. And again, our thanks to Howard Simon and Zig Fracassi for being with us.
The reason I asked about Jim Harbaugh at the end of the
is because you like to have the last word and the last question.
No, because I had
every freaking show.
I had 6 questions, but you said we were in a hurry. Is that I was shocked that Brian Flores got fired in Miami, Bob. I was shocked. I thought this guy, I think this guy's a really good football coach.
Well, then someone else will hire him, and Miami
Well,
will look
and-
stupid. And it won't be the first time Miami has looked stupid.
And Harbaugh is already rumored to be the coach in Miami for the Dolphins.
Well, I got to tell you, if you look at Michigan's record under Harbaugh, you could make the argument that you can't say has been a failure, but he hasn't been a great coach. Forget that in Michigan, you don't want to go 0-11 and then beat Ohio State, but you want to beat Ohio State, and he's only done it once.
Yeah, I know.
And he hasn't had a national championship team, and he hasn't even had a team. Well, this year, I guess, is the closest he's come to being a contender for a national champion. I just don't think he's that good a football coach.
I think some guys are college coaches designed to be coaches. And
Well, there's
some
no
guys
doubt about
are
that.
destined to be pro coaches. And I think Harbaugh, the only reason Harbaugh ended up at Michigan is because, his relationship with ownership and management with the 49ers just disintegrated. And Michigan offered him a job, and he took it. Not because he wasn't a good NFL coach, it's because his relationships just were terrible in the Bay Area. So I'm surprised he lasted this long at Michigan, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you why he lasted this long is because he didn't do a good enough job at Michigan. The expectations of Michigan are you want to be a top 10 team every year. And they haven't been.
Yeah.
And
he'll
you
be
want
he'll
to
be better.
beat Ohio State, and they couldn't.
He'll be better. He'll be better in the pros. He'll be better in the pros again. I think he will have learned his lessons and be better in the pros.
Well, first he's got to get a job in the pros, and my friend Shannon thinks he will.
So does Zig and Howard.
I wouldn't hire him.
Yeah.
That's all I can tell you. Is I wouldn't, based on what has happened.
You'd hire Urban Meyer, though.
I would have hired Urban Meyer. Yeah.
I know. What do you know?
I don't know. All right. Enough abuse from Shannon. We got to get out of here. We'll conjure something up again for you tomorrow. Hope you'll join us. For John Shannon, Bob McCown, goodbye, everybody.